Okay, folks, we're ready to roll. How was the food tonight? Thank you, Main Street Station. They hit another home run, and they always will for us. Tonight's meeting is being broadcast by Writer Nation Station, and you can find them on YouTube, Writer Nation Station. And when you get to their homepage, just click on videos. You'll scroll down, and you'll be able to find tonight's meeting. It'll be downloaded probably within, several days? Yeah, okay. So I've been asked, people all over the country want to watch what's going on here tonight, so. We have several distinguished guests in our crowd tonight, and I'd like to introduce, first of all, the administrator of the Auglaize County Historical Society, Rachel Barber. Representing the 84th District of the Ohio House, our State Representative Angie King and her husband Mark. We have two county commissioners with us tonight, Dave Bumbar and his wife Judy. And from St. Mary's, Doug Spencer. We have St. Mary's City Law Director and Historian Craig Noble. And we have from Columbus, author, playwright, and head consultant for the St. Mary's Theater and Opera House project, Michael Hurwitz. We had some significant events here in the village in this last year since our last meeting, and we'll be covering that here shortly. First, we have a little bit of business. If you would pull your programs out here. And you see a slate of officers for the Historical Society for President, Vice President, Secretary, Treasurer, and Trustees. I need a motion from the floor to accept this slate of officers as presented. Anybody who's a member?
I so move.
So Doug Holscher moves. We need a second.
I'll second.
Paul? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Opposed? Okay. Representative King, that's how we get business done around here. Okay, and also on the bottom of that program, you'll see open houses, and actually this Sunday is our first open house of the season. So if you've not been with us, things have happened over at the museum complex. We now have 6 buildings, and we'll talk about the barbershop here in a little bit, but it's been a fantastic year for us. Okay. As you may know, this is the 175th anniversary of Auglaize County, and there are multiple events going on the entire year, and I'm going to let Administrator Rachel Barber tell you just a little bit about what's going on here in the near future.
Thank you for inviting me to speak. I'll keep it very brief. We tried to pass these out to everyone. These are our heritage tours and brochures that highlight all of our village historical societies and museums, as well as sites in Auglaize County related to motion, transportation. We have so many of those sites, whether it's the canal, the railroad, chain migration, of course, here in New Knoxville, lots and lots of things, and of course, space. But so we hope you'll take the opportunity to visit some other sites in Auglaize County. And we've been working very hard on the 175th. I see that Reverend Dennis is back there in the corner. He's one of the members of our 175th anniversary committee. And so we've been trying to plan things that appeal to everyone. Now, you may not realize this, considering the size of the crowd in this room, but there are people who think that they're not interested in history. And we know that's wrong. We know we just have to find that little niche, that little catch that helps them understand, why history is important and why it can be very fascinating and entertaining. And so we're trying to reach all of those folks. And so this is just a schedule of some of the events we have coming up. As Todd said, we have the open house on Sunday, which is not just in New Knoxville, but all of our historical societies work together. So every fourth Sunday between now and October will all be open. And we're incentivizing that this year for the 175th with a passport program, so that if you visit at least 5 sites between now and October, you will be eligible to win one of 3 gift baskets worth more than $150. Again, we're trying to get people in to our sites, which I think we all know can be a problem sometimes because people don't realize that they are interested in history, that there's a connection to them in history. So I hope you take advantage of all these things we have going on, and we look forward to seeing you. We have things posted on the Auglaize County Historical Society Facebook page. We use our newspapers, all social media, and our member organizations also share those posts. So we will see you as we celebrate this wonderful anniversary for Auglaize County throughout 2023. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. I was handed a note just shortly ago from Bruce Alsace. We have, in addition to our distinguished guests, we have 4 Nona Generians. You know what a Nona Generian is? Anybody? Mr. Hoagie knows over here. These are 4 people in their 90s who helped this association get off the ground way back in 1984. And they are, and not in any particular order, Woody Hoagie, John Hoagie, Roberta and Umberto Tanzini, and Dick Alsace. Would you guys raise your hands? It's a great responsibility to continue the legacy that you guys started for us. Okay, one of the projects that we've had in mind for a long time has finally come to fruition, and your Historical Society here in New Knoxville has a brand new website, and our website creator, Jack Gilberg, is here with us tonight with JGI Internet Marketing, and he's going to give us a quick trip around the website to help you get a little more comfortable with what's going on here. So, Jack,
You want me to use the mic? Or
whatever you want to do.
can everybody hear me, or do you want me to use the mic? All right, I'll
You want-
try it like this. And I apologize for... I'll say, do I hand the wireless?
Here you go.
Oh, you got a wireless?
Yeah.
Okay. See if I can hold 3 things and do all this. Does it work? Yep. All right, first of all, I guess we started about 6 months ago, and Doug Holscher, Larry Meyer, Todd.
Louder.
Louder? There we go. Todd are on the committee, and I'm proud of what we've done. Hopefully they are too. Todd, you want to turn the lights down? Possibly, or can you do that? It's NJHistoryorg, and I encourage all of you when you get home or next time you get on a computer or even on your phone, pull it up and take a look. We've got a lot on here, although there's a lot yet to add. And the nice thing about the website is going to be an ongoing process through this generation, through the next generation, and it'll be a continuing archive of everything that has to do with New Knoxville and the surrounding area. So that's our goal, and I think we've done a good job. I'll just kind of, you guys see, can you see okay, Randy? Okay, sorry about that. When you get on here, basically the menu's up top. If you go to the history menu, you can see a lot of subcategories, and I'm not going to go into them now, but I encourage you just all kinds of articles, and really, I've spent a lot of time, of course, putting the articles on, but I get caught up in reading a lot about your community, and it takes me forever because there's a lot of interesting things that I didn't know about. I'm sure a lot of you haven't known or don't know about either. So the history, you know, anywhere from our community, schools, churches, serving our country. There's a section, I'll just show you this quick. Larry Niemeyer provided a lot of these photos, and we'll continue to add to this. You know, I encourage you to go into there. Heritage Center, again, all the newsletters up until we don't have 2023 on there yet, but soon that will be on here. Museum store, there's a lot of things for sale, and we'll continue to add to that. And then, of course, you can actually renew your membership online. Of course, you can still mail in the membership application. And then the important one, Todd, when we put out, you can actually make a donation too. So make sure you take a look at that. So basically, that's it in a nutshell. We try to keep, there's Randy, we try to keep interesting things, just new articles on the front page, just to keep it interesting. Again, I'll let you guys take a look at it and give all your feedback to Todd. Okay? So I'm proud of it. Hopefully you guys are too.
What's the website?
NJHistoryorg. Got it?
Thank you. Could I have the lights on, please? Now, remembering that we're a small nonprofit, to maintain this website will cost us $100 a month. And we're looking for sponsors to do that. And for your $100, your name, your family name, your business, or a memory of a loved one will be featured on the scrolling banner that you saw here. And like I said, we are a small nonprofit, so it's your donations that keep us going. We're also looking for stories about the 1936 centennial. And we need family history stories or reunions, things like that. So if you have any of those kind of stories, see Doug or Larry, and we're forwarding all these things to Jack, and they get on there fairly quickly. So our eventual goal with this website is for you to be able to, for a society member, to be able to tour any of the 6 buildings virtually. And you'll be able to click on an object, and it'll tell you what it is and where it came from. So we really got big ideas with this thing, so we do need your support to bring this to complete fruition. And this is a work in progress, so we're looking at a couple years down the road here before we get it where we want it, but we've got a great start thanks to Jack. So. Okay. So we talked about 2 significant events that happened in the community here. And the first was, as you know or may know, Adolphs was severely damaged in a springtime storm 2 years ago. And flatline winds ripped the roof off of Adolphs, and subsequent rains brought a major amount of water damage with mold and mildew. And the 1903 structure was beyond repair, and we lost that. But Randy and Doug, or Ron Weaver and I, not Randy, but Rusty and Ron Weaver and I were able to get in Adolphs on several occasions, and we saved a lot of artifacts, and most of which will be displayed in the barbershop sometime this coming year. So, and the other big thing was the Cotman Barbershop, and I've been asked, well, what's so important about this barbershop? Well, number one, it belonged to the village, and it was scheduled to be torn down, but the thing was in excellent shape. And it's a 1915 structure, and so right there, and it's historic in that Mr. Cotman assembled and put together the 1936 Centennial book in that very building. So very, very important to us. The only thing was, it's very, very expensive to move buildings. And somebody in the community stepped forward. In fact, it was a member of the founding one of the founding families, and that would be Red Cook family. And the driving force behind this was none other than Annette Cook. And with her donation, we were able not only to move the building, but place it on a new foundation, put a new steel roof on the building with new gutters, and now the inside is being finished. And if you circle September 24th on the open houses, we're having a dedication ceremony that day. And through the Red Cook donation, which, by the way, was the largest in the history of the New Knoxville Historical Society, that we have, it wasn't even close. It blew it out of the water. And with that donation, where's Annette? Annette, would you stand up and be recognized, please? This was a project when we first became aware of it. Everybody said, Spielus, it's not going to happen. You might as well forget it. But they didn't realize some of these people in the community take their history seriously. Now, concerning that barbershop and the September 24th dedication, local designer Bruce Elsass and artist Pat Weedholder are holding an art show in the barbershop. And what happened here, Bruce took pictures of old homes and buildings throughout New Knoxville, and Pat turned them into fantastic paintings. And now we're being made into greeting cards for the holidays, featuring buildings and places of New Knoxville. So you may want to come. And also, Pat is revealing 40 new works, and they are for sale. So you might want to get there that day for that open house, because this doesn't happen often. And the New Knoxville Historical Society will benefit from the sale of these cards and paintings. So I highly recommend you getting there. I had a sneak preview of Pat's work, and she is just plain world class. So we appreciate what you're doing for us, Pat. Now, the reason why you all came here tonight. I have 3 pages of bio on Randy, but you're only going to get 1 paragraph. Yeah. I think you were a 1974 graduate, 75 graduate of New Knoxville, and then you got a communications degree at Bowling Green. And from there, listen to this. He's now executive vice president of the Library, Archive, and Sci-Tech for the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences. He has direct oversight of the Academy's Margaret Herrick Library, the Academy Film Archive, the Academy's Science and Technology Council, the Academy's Scientific and Technical Awards. He received his master's in motion picture production from UCLA and worked for the CBS television network for 14 years, culminating as director of specials and feature films. Randy has worked as a freelance television producer and as a talent agent, and is the founder of the Silent Society, a silent film preservation and appreciation group that has presented and preserved silent films in Los Angeles for more than 30 years. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome home to Randy Haberkamp.
Hello. I'm so excited to be here. First things cleared. Yes, I did break my shoulder. That is not a lie. I wasn't trying to get out of this. I was so looking forward to this. Been preparing for it for a long time. I tripped over a carpet on my patio when a storm of wind blew it on my feet, and it was just stupidity happening in very fast motion. So I'm happy to be much better here. I'm recovering. I still have some pain, but I will not feel any of it for the next hour or so. I'm really, so many parts of my life are intersecting in this room, and it's really been fun to see everybody again. There aren't very many younger people in here, and that includes me. And so if I come back, I would love to be invited back to speak to some of the students and explain to them why history is so important, why looking around and talking to your grandparents is important, and finding out about them before it's too late. Happy to talk to them about why this place is unique. I'm going to show you, I'm wearing this Oscar sweatshirt. I am not bragging or advertising. I am merely like a good New Knoxvillian wearing free goods. You know, they give me one of these every year, and it was a little nippy today, so I'm like, I think I need this. So I am happy to be working at the Academy. I love movies and I love history. I oversee the library. It's the biggest library of motion picture history in the world. We have Alfred Hitchcock's papers, Katharine Hepburn's papers, George Stevens' papers, We just got a major donation of animation art that will be announced in the next couple of days, worth $3 million. Our inventory is literally over $1 billion in value. We have a brand new museum that is finally opened, and the New Knoxville Historical Society opened their museum much faster than the Academy was able to build a museum. So anyway, it's a wonderful place to work. It's a challenging place to work, but nobody dies from bad library science, and so I take it all with a grain of salt. But my love of history started here. So many, my 5th grade teacher is here. My cousin, who, sure, scared the crap out of me as a kid, telling me about the bed that we were sleeping in. I was probably like, 6, was owned by a German spy. I don't know. And introduced me to the Twilight Zone and the concept of to serve man, which still scares me. I have other friends here, Bruce and Rusty, who helped me on this film in particular. I'm probably leaving people out. The people, Woody, who I'm so happy to see you, helped start the Historical Society, helped put up Haberkamp Hall with the photographs here when we were making this, which was not something I expected. And the Historical Society, when they formed, I was like, I'm a film student. I should do like a slideshow. No, I can't do a slideshow. I should do like maybe a little film. And then it turned into this thing where we shot like 26 hours of footage and interviewed people. I didn't know Elmer Cruzy farmed with my grandfather. I never met my grandfather. So I met him through Elmer. It was a real honor to shoot this film with people, many of whom I knew, many of whom I didn't. I'm really happy to share some of these characters to you because that's what New Knoxville really has, is character. So the first thing I'm going to show you is a combination of how, my dad had a jewelry store where from the Ketta Henry hardware store that is now the post office, and he sold, you could get your film processed there back when you had to process film, and you could get a home movie camera, and he took one off the shelf when I was born. So, home movies, excuse me, this is gonna be tough for me. Home movies are something that we all take for granted. You probably have some in your house. You guys should think about whether the Historical Society should have them. They're of much more value than you know. Hopefully you will learn from that. We have a huge home movie collection at our archive. The home movies are from a lot of famous people. Again, Alfred Hitchcock and Ginger Rogers. You'll see all these people. And I love finding them, and I love the things that they tell you. They show you Hollywood stars as real people, which is a whole different experience. And it's often quite illuminating and actually brings movies down to a more common level, which I think is really a good thing, because in the end, it's storytelling, it's parables, it's sharing the idea of what the human condition is, when they're good. When they're bad, that's another story. But I got interviewed for a story during the Oscars when we were celebrating home movies, and Diane Sawyer came and did this story. And I want to show you this, again, not to brag about working at the Academy, but to show you the connection between all that Hollywood stuff and hometown. Okay? So I guess I need to control this.
So as we count down to the Oscars, we discovered a place in Hollywood where anyone can become a star on the silver screen. You might not win an Oscar, it's just for one day, but there's always a captive audience. They are screen gems from the private home vaults of Hollywood legends. Steve McQueen and his family, a 20-something Ginger Rogers, Candid cameras capture the personal lives of Hollywood legends in their own backyards, literally. Alfred Hitchcock, as you've never seen him, horsing around with his daughter, Esther Williams, and her daughter, and of course their pool. Decades later, these were donated to the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences for safekeeping, but once a year they're screened for the public, along with home movies of non-celebrities. You can be a movie star by bringing your own footage to be screened at the Academy's Hollywood Theater. It's free on Home Movie Day.
There's my mom. People love to come to Home Movie Day because they get to look at films they haven't seen in 20, 30, 40 years. Oh, my boyfriend, my fiancé in college that I should have married. There were very many emotional moments on that film for me. Seeing my brother really got to me. It almost makes me tear up now, seeing him. And my mother and my aunt kissing each other at the train with tears in their eyes.
Half a century ago, home movie cameras were something special.
Just press the button.
Today, new technology may be taken for granted, but old films appreciated on Home Movie Day.
Some people think, I wish I'd shot some movies with my folks.
Randy Haberkamp is one of the amateur cinematographers who explained to an audience of strangers
One take, no editing.
his Super 8 adventure with his best friend in their small Ohio town in 1981.
This is our post office where all your letters and packages arrive and depart.
I couldn't believe the hair I had, how thin I was.
And here we see Knoxville's only gas station. And across the street, the only grocery store since the corner mart went bankrupt.
There's still a big, deep pride of where we're from.
And I hate the loss we're having in population. And that's the young people moving away. And you're a prime example.
You never know what will be discovered on Home Movie Day. 1932 footage here of rare snow in Beverly Hills. The one collector bought at a flea market for $5.
Something that we try and teach people at Home Movie Day is how to take care of their materials. Some advertisement will say, oh, put all your home movies on DVD and then they'll last a lifetime. Do you really think you're going to be watching DVDs in 20 years? No, of course not. The technology will change. Never throw the films away. The film will probably last much longer than the DVD will. It will last longer than the videotape will. So if you make a transfer for access purposes, always keep those original films.
And as we hope you know, the 80th Academy Award telecast airs live Sunday, February 24th, beginning at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific. The end of a television era after 17 years. Montel, say it isn't so!
So, that's not the last time that I used New Knoxville at the Academy. I did a series of film presentations in the Academy's theater that was celebrating the 75th anniversary at the Academy, and that was 20 years ago. And at that time, I was showing all the best pictures in chronological order, and I was putting the content. People say, oh, I hate that movie, or why is that movie so bad? Why did they pick that movie? And I'm like, okay, if you look at the movies in order, and you think about the history of what was going on, and you understand the context is an important word for me, as it should be for history buffs, then you will understand. You may not like it any better, but you will understand what happened here. And so one of the things that was going on is cell phones were like really exploding at that time. And I kept having cell phones go off in the screenings, and it was like, okay, please, can you, this is a movie theater, let's stop that. And so I thought, okay, let's try and figure out a way to say that and get people to understand, and maybe say it in a way that is humorous, and maybe they'll pay more attention. So I kept coming up with these ways to say things humorously, and one of the ways was I made some videos with my mom. And Randy's mom became such a famous person, more famous than me, that when Bruce was sitting next to George Takei of Star Trek at the Oscars one year, George says, who are you and why are you here? And Bruce says, well, I know Randy. Oh, he goes, yeah, I come to Randy's screenings, but you must know Randy's mom. so here I'm going to show you one of the videos that was created for, my screening series and celebrate my mom. Last real change. All right, so now we'll get into more serious stuff, but not completely serious. I've tried to give you some laughs through this because what's New Knoxville without a few laughs, right? So this next piece is, like I said, when I went back to college and told everybody, and that was one of the things, I wrote a screenplay from my first screenwriting class, and the professor said, you've got this, this story is kind of like Hackneyed. I don't know what you're trying to say here, but there's this beginning scene where you talk about this little town. You should do that. And that was probably the best lesson I've ever had, because it taught me to write what you know and to lean into the things that you've experienced. And it served me well in many things. So, there we are. This is the film that we made in 1981 that I brought back, and it ended up on creating that story for Good Morning America. I'm showing it to you, number one, because this was the genesis of the documentary that we ended up doing called Small Town American for the Sesquicentennial, but also because it shows you some people and things that were gone by 1985.
Welcome, hello, and welcome to New Knoxville, home of Haberkamp. I'm Bruce, otherwise known as Star. Oh my goodness, look who's walking past. Playing with a map. You are here. Okay? Our first stop in the small community of Big Opportunity is Hoagie Lumber Company. the dream place of every man's job for his life after high school. What you see now before you is Main Street in Knoxville, USA. There is a home population of 792 and was settled by German immigrants in 1836. Go team, go! Thank you, Wayne. We are now at the NJHis, the Knoxville Local School. This is where 3 of the executives from Haberkamp Productions went to school. School currently enrolls 472 students, kindergarten through senior class. Wayne is now pointing at the top floor, which is the high school. We are now in the gymnasium. We are now in the school gymnasium, which was built with true community spirit, moral and financial support, and fine cooperation undertaken by the Knoxville people in our bicentennial year. This is a public library that's going to be evicted within a year. By the way, this is my mom's coat. She wears her every Monday night. And here is VIP travel service, where Wayne is inside making arrangements to leave. And here's Knoxville's only payphone, where you can make a local call for a nickel. Hark, hark, is that the phone? Hello? This is the Elsas residence, home of Haber-Sassledge's haunted houses, basement cinemas, and backyard carnivals. And this is my family. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Merry Christmas! Doesn't this look like a Hallmark card? I am washing the car now. See how good I wash. And this is the Methodist church. The little church. I bet you wonder why we zoomed in on that house. That's right, it's Randy's house. Now I'm going to introduce you to Randy's parents. This is Adrian. Now, watch the game. And I'm going to introduce you to Randy's mother, who's responsible for all our flashy costumes from all the Haber-Sassledge production movies, as well as this tasteful top that I'm wearing now.
Seriously, folks, I'm not like that. This is the real me.
And now, as we get closer to the heart of the city, this is our post office, where all your letters and packages arrive and depart. And by golly, look there it is, downtown New Knoxville. There's world-famous Adolph's. Adolph sponsors the U.S. National Tug-of-War Champions. And here's a window full of their trophies. What are you doing? Of Adolph's. See how beautiful it is. Stop. And now here's one of Adolph's waitresses. Why is Adolph such a people pleaser?
Because it's the only place in town, and because it's old.
Haven't I seen you before?
Yes, I'm Norma.
Wayne pointed the big church. Its sister church originated in Lottbergen, Germany. We are now atop the church steeple. Isn't the city beautiful from up here? All the lights. We're awestruck. The view is so beautiful. You're now looking down Main Street, Adolph's, where we just came from, the firehouse. barbershop with Brick. How many years have you been cutting hair, Brick? We're now at the corner mark where we have a happy customer getting her meat choices. Now we're going down the aisle here. And what do we have up here? The mayor. Hi, Mayor.
Well, hello.
How are you?
Nice to have you in town to visit us again.
Yeah, we're back. Do you have a few words you want to say about Knoxville?
Oh, I think it's a great little community, and I like the way everybody knows everybody else and takes care of everybody else. But I hate the loss we're having in population, and that's the young people moving away, and you're a prime example, aren't you?
Yes. Stop. We're now on the farthest side of town where Knoxville's grain elevator is. This is where all the farmers bring all their corn and oats to sell to Russia. This was once a former famous Haberkamp haunted mansion and former residence of Bob Hope's nephew Fred. Outside the city limits at the Neil Armstrong Airport, first named after the first man on the moon. His birthplace is just outside the township. We're now at Haberkamp Manufacturing Company, owned and operated by Adrian and Elvin Haberkamp. Aside of me, we have Brian and his cousin Ted. What you doing, Brian?
What's Morris? You painted.
Dean and Richard are here stamping out pieces for a Jeep Ball Brook Assembly. This is Pilgrim Cemetery, resting place of our forefathers. This is the People's Savings Bank where we bring all our pennies. And this is the Village Town Hall and Fire Department, designed by Hoagie Lumber Company. Despite all our many attractions, New Knoxville is primarily a farming community. We are now at the farm owned by Hosea Henchen. We're not interrupting the film. There's a fire here in the big city. I'm out of breath from running. And there goes another truck. Don't know what kind of fire it is, we'll find out for you, but here goes another truck. Oh, we turned on the siren. Listen to that action, man. I'm so excited. Sorry for the interruption of the farm scene, but there was a fire in town and we had to go to it. Here's an eyewitness of the account that happened, Jose Henchen. Can you just tell us what happened, sir?
We were sitting in the house, and his daughter hollered, "Fire!" So we looked, and his 4 tractors burning. So he called the fire department, and he had to think of his new fire extinguisher he got for Christmas. He took it, put the fire out, then the department came, it was too late.
Oh, see, we're back on the farm again. And Knoxville is primarily a farming community, so we're watching Jose milk a cow. Jose, why do you like the farm life so much compared to city life?
Well, you don't have any trouble with unemployment. You always got your work to do. And I've lived 30 years, that's the only thing I know.
Is it? Oh, okay. As you can see, here's Brenda's son, who's also milking cows. He's the police chief of New Knoxville. Hi, Brad. How you doing? Okay. How is the crime wave in New Knoxville? We don't have too much of a crime wave, to tell you the truth. Once in a while we have little thefts, small stuff like that. Mostly traffic. I see. Keep slowed down and speed it out there. Enjoy your tour of New Knoxville, and we hope you have a happy New Year. Hey!
You got to start somewhere. It looks better than that, but time changes everything. That was 41 years ago. That's all I can say. Anyway, let me get back here. Oops, no. Okay, so I am standing on the shoulders of quite a few people in New Knoxville. One is Art Hoagie, who shot a lot of photographs of the town. And through the grace of Maida Hoagie, she let me make copies of all those slides that Art took. Leroy Kuhlman shot a lot of film slides as well, and Matilda Kuhlman allowed me to use those. Sylvanus Eversman had a son who was living in Chicago, and Bruce was living in Chicago and found out that there were home movies from the Sylvanus Eversman family. The church here had some home movies of the church centennial, and Alan Kethenry shot a film for the Civic Association in 1955, and Shirley Kethenry let me take that 16mm film and do a new transfer of it. I'm very happy that all those people allowed me to make use of their materials, which are in the files of the Historical Society. Partly because the 16mm film that they let me transfer, I was able to transfer at CBS, where I was working at the time of Small Town American. And because of that, 16mm film can shrink. That's one of the things that we do at our archive, is try to fix shrunken, broken, all kinds of things can happen to film. And preserving that and restoring it is a real art and science. And so I'm glad we were able to transfer that footage in 1985 because it looks really great. And I want to share some segments from Alan's film from 1955, A Tour of New Knoxville. So again, what you saw in 1981 was 40 some years ago. This was even further back. Some of you will remember these things, others of you will remember what they became later, but I think it's really interesting to see how the town that never changes actually does kind of change. So this is an aerial view. Can we blend this? Oh, good, thank you. This is an aerial view, and you'll see that, or you may have seen that what I call the Kettenry House, where Mike Cook lived for years, was being built then. And you'll see back in the segments that haven't been developed yet. There's my house where I grew up, and also Main Street and there's the old town hall with the one-door fire department. And here comes the tanker with a yellow stop sign there in the corner. And that water fountain there on the corner. Adolph's in the background, yes. And the poles for the telephone company, which were in the second floor of Adolph's at that time. The city service station across the street. I don't know those gentlemen, maybe somebody else here does, but they're digging an artesian well there, and you see the water pressure coming up from that well of its own volition. And they're capping it off. Does anybody recognize the house in the background? There's the old creamery, which became the American Legion Hall at that time. And here, of course, is Hoagie Lumber in 1955. Look at them logs, yes indeed. Adolph's with the bank, and you'll notice next door there's still the house there that I believe was sold paint, if I'm not mistaken. I vaguely remember that. Here's the telephone office upstairs in Adolph's with the operator. If you've seen Small Town American, you know the story of Dr. Flutterjohn throwing a brick through that window beside her there when Benny Kennehenry was born, and the operator didn't answer the phone, upsetting the doctor. Here's the light department, or the electric department rather. This is the Corner Mart or Chick's Grocery with the buildings that were alongside it at the time. I've heard all kinds of stories. There's a gas pump in front of the post office there because that was Kennehenry Hardware at the time with the post office on the left side. There's Orley Hinkener's Pure gas station. Brookside before the additions put on it. And here's the door inside the laboratories of Brookside. Does anyone know who that is? Your grandma. Who? What's? And is this Virginia? Does anybody know? Virginia Cook. Yeah, that's what I thought. Even just from the back. Anybody know who that is? This is when the library was at the Dairy Bar, and there's Cook's IGA and Warner's Garage there. This is the tile mill. Now, is this Myron Upperman, or am I guessing wrong? Maxstroth Garage, or paint shop. And that's when Chick's Home Grocery was in their house. Hoagie Brush. I think we went on a tour there as kids. I love this kind of machinery. I've always found it fascinating. Anybody know who this is? I'm sorry, somebody said? Neil Cook, okay. Dale or Neil? Neil? This is Benny Kennehenry's cabinet shop, which was behind his house there. I think that building's gone now. City Service there on the corner across from Adolph's. And I guess originally that was like the head hotel space up on the top. This is New Knoxville Supply. And this is Homer Cook's appliance store. And then, of course, our barbershop that's now been moved to the Historical Society. This is became Lagaman's Garage. It was Mexto's Garage. I guess it started as a bicycle repair. I'm not even sure what that is. I'm sorry. Of course, the Farm Bureau. I love that old bridge. You can see just a little piece up there. Okay, that's Roger Hankener. I'm not sure who the man speaking is, but this is WLWD in Dayton, and this is the Knoxville Community Singers. I believe Dick Elsass is in here. Is that right, Dick? You're here in the audience tonight.
Yes.
And I think that's Ruth Niemeyer in the front. I'm sure there's others that you recognize. And there's that's Zella Eversman playing the piano and Ferd Eversman conducting. And I think the Historical Society has albums recorded by these people. That's the Alan Henry footage for the... I love that stuff. So, we're going to move on to some extended interviews from the documentary that I shot. I've tried to pick sequences that aren't in the film, but there's a couple occasions where you may hear things you've already heard before, but you'll hear a little bit of a longer story because I was trying to keep everything short. But even if you have seen this footage before, these are all people I really love, and I think you'll enjoy spending time with them again. This is a whole group around the backyard of Mextros.
Lucky, you remember Grandma was always sick.
Yeah.
And then my sister name was also Matilda, and his mother's name was Matilda. And my sister lived with Grandma. I mean, she hardly lived at home until she got married. She always lived at Grandma's, you know. And then we would always say, when people would say, well, which Tilly did you talk to? Little Tilly or Big Tilly? See, his mother was tall, and my sister was just small. They wanted to know if they talked to Big Tilly or Little Tilly. Do you remember that, or did you never hear that?
Earlier, I believe he had, or started a car, or had some kind of car that, do you know anything about that?
Yeah. I saw it one time. I seen it standing there in the shed, but I never seen it often.
What was it called?
Well, I don't know if it had a name for it, but it was, what? A three-wheeler.
Yeah.
But just what it really...
The first cars in the...
Yeah. And, well, I think the fellow we call Pony Bill around here, he run a plumbing shop. And he had one of the first old brush car. At least the first car I'd ever really seen run down the street here maybe once a week or so we'd all run through the street there to the main street and watch it going by. But that was all dirt road, big cloud of dust back of it, you know. But that was really a sight to see.
I believe you took photographs as well, right?
Slightly, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They claim that's why he built that house himself there, and there's a tower up on one corner, and that's where he was taking pictures of the town. When you see any picture of the town, like up by, that was taken from his little room up there.
He was the marshal years ago, too, wasn't he, Becky?
I don't know that.
Yeah.
Maybe he was. I know in Dad, Grandfather was. He was the marshal here, and I can tell you one about that.
morning we seen him running from his house, who lived right next to us there. That time he's riding down the street, we were wondering what was going on. We followed him up to the town hall there, and here he had in those days these beggars would come through town and they would have no place to stay while they'd keep them they had a jail here at that time, and they'd lock them up in there for the night. And the next morning he had forgot that he had gone in there, and this guy started hollering in there and banging in the neighbors over there. They called him, and so he was running over there. Something just fell out.
Real small, that jail.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh.
A big square thing. Yeah, it's got that little jail.
That you remember the building burnt? Jim stopped with everything. Yeah. And had a pretty good fire, I guess. And the fire department and the slack came out and all up the damn thing burned. It's all through. I don't remember that.
Annie, the barn's on fire. The barn's on fire. That's stuff that Mr. Harper. It's all rotten, and he used to buy these guys, my dad, and his dad, and some other guys, they used to shoot sparrows. And then for every sparrow they'd bring slack, he'd give them some money for that. Well, they shot a lot of birds, and then he wouldn't do nothing with them, he just pitched them out. And then Double Nine and his dad and my dad, they'd go out there and pick them up again and
So I hope you recognize a lot of those folks, the Megstros and Nori Werwell, and I think you'll probably recognize that nicknames in New Knoxville have been around for a long time. So if you know who all those nicknames belong to, you're one up on me, that's for sure. So the next one I want to show you is Zella. Zella was somebody who, of course, really loved to talk, and she shared a lot of stories with us, and she lived in the house which is now the home of the Historical Society. That whole deal was made with her son, and I think Woody made calls to him about that, and it's really great. I can't tell you how proud I am of the Historical Society and what has happened to that property over the years for such a small town. I'm on the board of Hollywood Heritage, which oversees architectural preservation in Hollywood. They ain't so good. Everything's a set. They tear it all down. Elmer Cruzy once said in the interview, the thing about Germans is they use everything except the squeal of the hog, and they put that in the radio. I love that line, and the thing that I love too is, as you research New Knoxville and the town, they didn't tear buildings down, they just moved them somewhere else, So things still exist that have been around for quite a while, and people were very resourceful, and I think in some ways still are. But that's a lesson, I think, that should be taught. Think about how you can reuse stuff. So here's Zella.
First thing I guess we should ask about, since it's right here, is this tree. What can you tell us about it?
I don't know how old it is, but my father didn't think it was even virgin forest. But he told Jim that when he was a little boy and came from Lot 6 to town, it was then already a pretty big tree. So it must be very old. It must be the oldest tree around. And until they incorporated Hoagie's Woods over there, it was the only forest tree in town. But now that belongs to the town too. So I don't know how old it is, but very old. There is a lightning rod in there, but it's grown fast into the tree by now, and so it doesn't do any good anymore. And as I mentioned before, perhaps, that someone told me lightning probably would never hit this tree anyway, because of the shape it has. That's the type that does not attract lightning.
How long has the swing been on, or with the swing up here?
Oh, as a child, we already had a swing in here, but it was right above us here at the branches, and it was just a rope swing, and then with a one passenger, just a rope swing, and we swung this direction. And then later on, when my dad put up these lawn swings, then he turned the direction, and we used to have clothesline posts out here, and he had a rope on the post that he had adjusted so that he could swing himself with that rope, sitting in the swing. So.
Your father was the village doctor for many years.
Yes, over 50 years. Yes, over 50 years. And he was a doctor in St. Mary's for almost 2 years. And then I supposed that as soon as he got out of the university that he would get married, but he didn't. And he was a doctor there for 2 years. Then he was married in April of '88. And then July the 4th, he moved into this house of '88. And then very soon after that, I think he must have built the office. And then my mother planted those vines. That's why we always took very good care of them. It was the only remembrance that I have of my mother, that she had planted those. And my mother died when I was 10 months old. So I never knew my mother. Besides that, when I was 6 months old, my father took her to Denver, which was supposed to be a good climate for consumptives, as they called them in those days. And but she died out there 4 months later. So I didn't even see her after I was 6 months old. And my mother said, Sarah Hortat told me one time, she had sat in the living room with my mother and me, and my mother had touched the cradle and had said, I wish that, poor child, I wish you were with the good Lord in heaven, so I know what would become of you, because I simply cannot take care of you any longer. I'm simply too sick. And so right after that, and I think that's why she came to see her, because she knew my mother was leaving very soon. So that was the last of that. And I lived at my grandmother's on the way to St. Mary's, the regular road we always drove. Right next to where Elsoff Drive, that White House, that's where I grew up till I was 6 years old. And then I came back home here, lived here, and went to school here.
You grew up with
With my grandmother, grandfather, 3 aunts, and 2 uncles who spoiled me rotten. My husband used to say to me, I always had a feeling that I must be extra nice to you. I said, well, that's just lovely. But I said, you mean because I didn't have a mother for mother love? Yes. I said, I had more mother love than any 2 or 3 children combined that you can name. Said, I had a wonderful childhood, just wonderful. Just last week, the paper said, Netta Fromm died, but I saw the name Netta, N-E-T-T-A. The next farm to ours, on the road to Knoxville, was Sudman's. That was Nettie Sudman. And I used to go there and visit them when I was a little girl, 4 or 5 years old. Just go there and visit adults. But they were all nice to me. I'd spend a whole day there with them. Hi, kitty, kitty, kitty.
Was your father the only doctor in town at that time?
Oh, yes, for many, many years. The only doctor.
Till about what year?
Till about, I don't remember. When is that? In the let's see, he started here in 88, all right? And add 50 to that would make it 66, no. What? How many years? That make it 1938. Well, then Dr. Slusher came here, and he worked in this office for a couple of years. Then he moved to North Star, and I haven't heard of him since. I don't know where he is since then. So, and then Dr. Sparks came and was in Adolph's house over there, and then after that, and Dr. Mixtros. So then Pop didn't work anymore, and Pop died in 1950. He was almost 95. I always said I didn't want to be that old. I'm getting there.
Gotta love Zella. This one explains itself, and it's also another example of recycling. Recognize any of these kids?
This swing was made from reproduction from years back. We had it here, 1941, the old one was the last time it was used. And we junked it, so we made a new one. And the old one, Heine Student Brook made the old one. It was made about 1870. So like I say, 41, the old one was the last time it was used, and the war came on, so we quit these pictures. Then we junked it, and back in 83, and we built a new one. So we've been using this now for 3 years. And I say John Heckner from down here, and Dave Burrow, Art Generians, and John Hoagie, they helped get the thing to work.
Any parts from the old swing?
The only parts that's from the old swing is the braces and the short braces that's in the center.
The rest is all from
We made it from the rich, yeah. Except the center pole, we didn't have no center pole. It was just made from what we remember from years back.
Okay, this is another example of, I recorded this interview because I wanted to know about A.H. Steinecker, because he had founded the telephone company along with my, great-grandfather, William Haberkamp. And I wanted to hear about that and other things that A.H. did, because I knew he was an important historical figure. And I ran across Don Steinecker on his bike as he was riding around, which he did quite a bit. And, he was a youngster to me at that time, but at the same time, I love this interview because he talked about, we all remember his piano playing, I think, and we all remember, hearing the come from the house. And he to me was a real character and somebody that I never really knew everything that was going on there, but I knew it was deeper than I could tell. And this just surprised me.
Of course, the telephone company, that was starting to come into being, and so then he was elected manager. He was to take charge of the office duties there. And then for many years he was in the telephone company, and as he gradually got older, he phased it out to one of his son-in-laws, who was Noah Kennedy, and then he more or less went back to his first love, which was, farming. And he kept hives of bees and, grapes, and he did a lot of grafting with trees. I remember he had one apple tree that had 7 different kind of apples on it, and one variety of pears, all from the same rootstock. But he was a bird, but like I told you earlier, I think he was about 50 years ahead of the people in town, was ahead of his time. But
One interest, well, there's a lot of things that people, when he did them, they thought he was crazy.
Like what?
Well, for instance, putting in cement sidewalks. Everybody had board sidewalks. Well, he put them in, and, or else they used flat stone, they just laid them on a stepping stone. Oh, it would never work, you know. Never worked, but it did. Then he put in curbing, and, well, he had the first cement steps, you know, going into his house. And, you know, just all little things like that.
You said he dug wells?
No, he had the first artesian well in town.
Ah.
Most of the wells in town here were dug wells. In other words, guys would get them and dig them, they'd line them with brick, and, well, after they found out that there was a main of artesian water below, he hired somebody to drill that first well. Well, everybody thought he was loony then. But when the water gushed out of the top of the pipe, and he capped it, and put water in his house, running water, no pump or anything, natural pressure. Well, then they found out or decided he wasn't as loony as they thought he was. But one of the most interesting facts as far as myself and my grandpa, I was the only grandchild that was allowed in his workshop. Because I would use the tools and I would put them back where they belonged when I was painting. The rest of them would just let them lay. And they usually had one shot, and that was the end of their visit to grandpa's workshop. The first car I ever drove was his Model A. I was the only grandson that was allowed to drive that Model A. And
These guys we got here, is he,
no, this is an innovation of my own. I have a friend in St. Mary's that he made them for many, many years. And, well, I've always had kind of a passion for knives. I have, well, a collection of lockbacks and straight skinners, you know, that sort of thing. But, so he said, well, he said, you can make those knives. He said, the same as me.
What are they made of?
These are made from old bandsaw blades that come from Hoagie Lumber Company that they knock the teeth out of. You know, from hitting something in the log, you know, like a bolt or a chain or a piece of cable.
And what's the,
These knives are used for filleting Lake Erie walleye. See, they're all different designs. The blades are different lengths. The flexibility is different, and there's not two alike. I mean, they're one of a kind. And I have them all over the world. I have them in England, have them in Australia, New Zealand, Germany.
where do you sell them? How do you?
Just word of mouth.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
You get letters?
Yes, yeah. And a lot of these people I've never met them. Probably never will meet. But they said, send me a knife. And I sent them a knife, and maybe 2-3 months later, well, here I get a voucher or a check or, as long as it's currency that I can take to the bank and redeem, I don't care. So, and I've got a lot of the boys in service. I mean, I've sat knives with them, and usually they show them to some of their buddies, and then, well, I'll get a couple orders from them, you know, maybe a half a dozen knives. And the 1 year, well, this was, I think, the second year after I, got really adept in making these things. I sold 593 knives in 1 year, just as a hobby. The deer hunters, the buck skinners, all kinds of people.
Again, I told you about Elmer being in a cooperative with my grandfather, which I knew nothing about. I wanted you to, if you didn't already know a little bit more about him, I'm just always amazed at the stories of people who not only became self-sufficient in ways in New Knoxville, but also people who extended beyond the community and worked outside, even though they stayed within the community and worked with it. They expanded, the reach, and Elmer's quite an amazing character.
Well, I tell you, I only moved to this town 20 years ago. I was born out in the country, a mile east of Knoxville, where Wallace Cook lives now. And on the northern half of that farm is where we moved when I was 5 years old. That was really our homestead, and that's where my younger boy lives now. Kurt, yes. And most of my work that I done in the community, well, when I graduated from high school, I taught in the Knoxville Village School for 4 years. 5th and 6th grade. And then I lost my voice, and the doctor said, you have to get out in the open. I finished that school term. For the last 2 months, I couldn't only talk about always. Said I had to get outside. So I went to farming again. Then I got interested in the cooperative movements. And anything that is in the cooperative line, I was involved in. I helped build the farm bureau in this county. It was president of it a number of times. Helped establish the producers marketing at Wapakoneta, the egg market at Fort Recovery, the Equity Creamery at Lima, and the final effort in the cooperative field was the one that established the Western Ohio Electric. That as far as I'm concerned was a crowning event. Because that was quite a chore. Most of the farmers in this community had their own little electric light gun called the Delta lights. And they weren't quite sure that they were ready to give that up. And, just a little story connected with that. I was stationed in Columbus at that time, head of the agricultural department for the state of Ohio. And they called me up and said, say, you better come back here or you won't have any electric light on your own farm out there. Well, I said, I can't come back during the day, I'm tied up out here. Set up a meeting in the little old red schoolhouse, Brookside School. And I tried to be there by 8 o'clock this evening. Well, I didn't quite make it by 8, it was about 10 minutes past 8. But when I got there were 102 farmers there. And I spoke to them and told them what it was all about and what we had to do. When that meeting closed up, I had 100 of those 102 signed up for the REA, and the other 2 that signed the next day. And after that book was wide open and went right on to completion then.
Are these cooperatives for electricity?
Yeah.
What's the REA stand for?
Rural Electric. REA, Rural Electric Administration. Henry Wallace was Secretary of Agriculture at that time.
Is that then the company, the Western Electric Company?
Yeah, that's it. On the old 33 out here, a couple miles east of St. Mary's. That's it.
When did
retired, stopping there and talked to Earl Singer. He was all
when did the area start to get electricity? How did that transition take place?
Well, first we had to get the right-of-way signed up. And then we had to get the money approved in Washington, and we had a lot of difficulty with that. So then a couple of weeks after we had the right-of-ways completed, they called me again and said they just couldn't get their loan approved. Well, I said, I can't do anything about that, but I said, I will do this. If Conrad was the head of the local committee, if you and the other members will come down to Columbus, I'll go with you to Washington. And said, we'll talk to Henry Wallace. I said, I know Henry Wallace. So we made the trip to Washington at our own expense. Talked to Henry Wallace and told him our difficulties. And it was a matter of a little personal animosity. One of the guys in Columbus that had approved didn't approve of me, and I didn't approve of him. So it was as simple as that.
So you went over his head, you went to Washington?
Yeah, I went to Washington. I explained the thing to Henry. Wallace, and he reviewed everything that we had and said it looks okay to me. And he called up Ellis, who was at that time head of the aluminum department for the REA, and said, I would appreciate it if you would approve this room while these boys are still in town out there. So when we left town, we had a loan approval.
And that was for how big of an area here?
Well, that's all of it lays down in part of Shelby, part of Mercer, and part of Van Wert, and part of Allen.
Well, what year was that?
We started in 1935. That's when we had the loan approved. By the time we got our line constructed out then, my personal farm was hooked up in 1937.
I didn't know Elmer very well, and I didn't know Alice Cook, and Kevin Settlage, who was part of Haberslashage, said, no, you got to talk to these people. So thank you, Kevin, for that. I think everybody's probably seen Adolph's and having a lot of tinges. I know you heard the report earlier. Things happen. Things outlive their time. Things can't be fixed or whatever. It's sad, but it happened. And at the same time, it's a really great place to have memories. So I thought you'd like to see an interview with my dad and John Hoagie talking about when they, Adolf retired, and it has a little story about the centennial that was being talked about too. So hope you enjoy this return to Adolph's.
Well, I think Adolph is more familiar with some of the early history than I am. So,
okay.
Maybe you want to give a little background on Ben Cooks.
All right. This used to, are we starting now? Okay. This used to be Ben Cook's general merchandise store, and Adolph Hanson had a restaurant out to the back, to the east of this building, and they lived on top of the building, and a lot of people would always come there, especially the young kids. They'd even play cards. They had some card games there in one of the areas. And he had, real good business. And the thing I especially remember is 4th of July. He would have real heavy, I guess you call them cherry bombs. And they used to have in this, what we call a shed, storage shed back there. They had a creamery there. It was Page Creamery Company, or Dairy Company. And I remember a lot of times Dad would take cream down there with that, this was back at the farm, and you had a separator, and they'd separate the milk from the cream. And we'd have to take the cream down, and then they would haul it away. And anyhow, he would have some of these cans and the lids. He would put some of those firecrackers on there, and they would go way up in the air, and they'd try and catch it then. They'd go up 50, 60 feet in the air. And that centennial time, just before, a little before, Adolph bought Ben Cooks. They sold out here, and then Adolph Hanson bought this building here, premises, and he wasn't hard to set up, and he had the centennial there, and he had a lot of tanks and stuff. They just had beer and pop, and just had this place inside was half filled and half not. It was just sort of, and they tried to rush it to get things to sell here, and they really had a mob here. I guess it was one of the largest parades and crowds they've ever had in the town. And Adolph, he was quite a character. He talked for hours and hours. He just loved spending all his time in here. And
I remember one time, it used to be when he got older, he would sit in a rocking chair. And you could come in here at, sometimes 2 o'clock in the morning, and there wouldn't be anybody in here except Adolph, who was sitting back here in a rocking chair. And I can remember as a kid, he used to sell lollipops, which was a dip of ice cream on a stick dipped in chocolate. And he made it with vanilla ice cream and strawberry ice cream. And if you would get a red one, a strawberry ice cream, you'd get another one free. And so, one time, shortly before we retired, I was in here alone with him one evening, and I said, hey, I sort of wondered what percentage of those were strawberry and what percentage of those were vanilla. He says, mister, nobody knows that. How do you know that? I'm not going to tell you. I said, okay, did you have them separated in the cooler? So that when you gave a fellow one, they all looked chocolate, of course, but when you gave a fellow one, did you know whether that was the strawberry one or a vanilla one? He says, well, I'm not going to tell you that either. Nobody knows. So I said, well, if I were running this place, if a guy was sitting at the bar alone, his chance of getting a strawberry one is 0. I would make sure that whenever a guy got a strawberry one, that whole bar was filled with people. Get just as much mileage out of that as possible. And he just laughed and he says, well, he says, we think a lot alike. The percentage, and as far as I know, no one knows the percentage. I was also in here one time. See, he had a trademark. He'd have a little pencil with a clip on in his shirt, and he'd have a dollar bill or two hanging from. That was sort of his trademark. He'd always have that. And so he was over here behind the bar one time mopping. And I'm sure this was all set up, but he flipped this dollar away from his clip, and he's just mopping. And this dollar is laying there on the floor. Proceeds to mop, and the young fellow sitting at the bar says, hey, you got a dollar laying down here, you dropped a dollar. And Adolf says, well, Sonny, when you're as old a man as I am, you don't stoop down for a dollar. This guy says, boy, I can't believe that. You mean to tell me you don't stoop down? He says, try me. So the fellow got a dollar out, put it down on the floor, and Adolf went up and took one of them off his clip and threw it down beside it and says, but I stooped down for $2. I think all of us that can remember the many years that Adolf ran the place, it was really a social center of the community, in that after any school event, certainly after any basketball game, everybody came in here. So when Adolf retired, there were some in the community that were concerned that we try to keep the same type of place that Adolf had run for, 40 years, or 30, well, from 36 to 75, I guess. Yeah. So, almost 40 years. And so that's really how the thing evolved into where it was owned by a group of fellows here in Knoxville. Primarily because we had a lot of good memories. Adolf was made a good impression on people, and we just wanted to have that same type of thing continue here in the community.
It sort of served as a center, revolving around everything. They meet here and they go to ball games, and they meet here and go to different meetings, and well, otherwise just sit around and, like they're doing tonight, just sit around and shoot the ball. I have one thing that before Adolf took over. When I went to catechize, we used to, it was crowded then too, and we had a sort of an ice cream parlor on this side and a candy bar on that side, and they had a powerhouse. I think they still have it today, but you got a quarter-pound powerhouse candy bar for a nickel. And that's about all the spending money we had. But that was a good meal, or a good, enough to eat for a while. And Adolf and Lady, they sort of run it as a partnership, and they did a good job. It serves as a youth center almost. A lot of youth come here, old people, just all kind of farmers, especially on rainy days, a lot of them come out there. It's just,
still that way.
Yeah, just packed.
I remember when the 8 of us bought out from Adolf in 75.
Yes,
was over in the parlor, and the whole deal was done. He said, well, boys, there she is. It's all yours. Now, let me give you a little advice. Never get old. And I think there were many people that were concerned, since this place has been so much of his life, that maybe it would be very tough on him not to be involved here every day in the restaurant. But I think he adapted very well. He would come in, and of course, people would be told that if they weren't from the community, they'd be told that this was Adolf. I think he sort of liked that. Well, he had an Adolf license plate, so he sort of liked it. And I think he very much was pleased with the fact that we wanted to keep the name of Adolf. Even though technically his name in operation was the AA restaurant.
Right, yeah, it used to be called the AA.
But everybody locally referred to it as Adolf, so I know he was pleased that we kept that.
Yeah.
So now we're going to deal a little bit with the concept of people moving in, because after World War II, there was a lot of people who came back with new brides or whatever, and so we're going to hear from a couple of people who were new to the community, one of whom in particular really got people to do all kinds of things. So let's visit with Betty Hinchin and Helen Cook.
Let's see, what else? You wanted to know how to get a pension?
No, well, you were talking earlier about hats. Could you talk about
Oh, in church. Yes, if you didn't wear a hat, you were more or less of an outcast in bygone days. And one of our ministers that came to town, his wife didn't wear one. And she was talked about, and she had even received anonymous letters stating that she should wear a hat. Meantime, not knowing anything about this, the minister asked me where he could get a birthday cake baked for his wife. And I said, oh, you don't have to have it baked, I'll bake one. So I baked this marble cake because they had children, and I thought maybe somebody might like chocolate and somebody might like vanilla, you know.
With marble in it.
Marble, yeah, marble. And it being a springtime birthday, I fixed this cake into the shape of a hat. And I put it on a base, you know, and covered it off, coconut, put flowers up on the side and everything, and wrote a poem about the spring hat. And later I found out then that she had received, you know, a letter stating that she should wear a hat. And it made me feel terrible that I had made that cake into the, you know, shape of a hat. Yeah, well, I think they knew I wasn't the one, but, you know, Mrs. Dundell.
And this is interesting because when I was younger, I remember that you and my mom wore
big ones.
Big hats, and it was
because tall women can wear big hats. And boy, we wore them. And now, if anybody, I think last Easter there was only one hat in church. See how times changed. So,
how did you get those big red voluptuous lip shoes? That is so
they came with me in 1927. They were known at one time as a small child, as kissable lips.
So I did try to make sure that as we were doing the interviews in 1985 that I got as many perspectives as possible. Again, some people I knew, some people I didn't, and some people who were, you know, really older and, you know, had real stories that went way back. We missed Elmer Henry, who died the weekend that we were filming and was the last World War I veteran, just to give you an idea of where we were in time there. And, but I wanted to also get some younger impressions. So 44 years ago, this was a younger impression.
Yeah.
we talk about pins? Oh my.
Let's see those pages.
What? Moot.
Yorkin. Oh.
Yorkin.
Yeah. What is that?
Yeah, we call her husband Yorkin, because all along we thought that that was John in German, and we just found out a couple of weeks ago that it means itch. No, we still say Yorkin, but we tell him we don't mean itch, we mean John.
Dutch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Moot. Our mother and thought. Our
Mother and father.
Kinder. Children.
We just shorten some of it up or whatever.
We have versions.
Very pin. Let's see what else. Kino. It's a movie. Roxy, that's a theater too.
Oh, we're
Is that no, you're pin. You never.
I worked at Crown Tools. I mean,
Oh, I didn't get it.
yeah. Oh, what?
Call VIP Travel for all your travel needs. 1-800-472-7787. Ohio Watts.
You did that frequency trip.
It was less than 44. I can't do the math anyway, but it was a long time ago. Anyway, the one thing I found in the footage that, again, because of things that have changed, was a shot where we just drove down Main Street. And as somebody pointed out, we were driving too fast, so I apologize for that. But anyway, here is Main Street in 1985. So I wanted you to know that when I shot this, we shot 25 hours of footage. We shot for, I think, 7 days. There were all kinds of people that aren't represented here. There's room for part 2, part 3, part 4. There's some people, Maida Hoagie was 5 tapes. She deserves her own evening. It's just, you know, she's just such a great neighbor. The footage, because it was shot on videotape in 1985, and by the way, when Don sold all those knives, this was without the internet that he sold them all over the world. And I have all these letters that I wrote to people back when you wrote letters on how to, you know, figure this thing out, what I was supposed to do. They're hysterical to read now. I wrote my own contract with the Historical Society, which I think is hilarious. When I told them that I wanted to do this, they said, I invited them over. We had shot for 3 days. I kind of did it on spec, and Leroy Cruzy and a bunch of guys came, people, you know, there were men and women, came to the house, and they were all sitting there like this. We're like, he thinks he's getting money out of us. We don't have money for a movie. What does he think's going on here? And I showed them 3 interviews, and they immediately said, how can we help? So people, Miss Edna, my 3rd grade teacher, and Selma donated money. All kinds of people donated money. I got these tapes. I made VHS tapes from them. I transcribed all of it by hand. I did this all in LA. I got my college buddy to shoot it for me. The whole thing cost $13,000 to do all that footage, to fly everybody around, to cut it, to edit it, to put all the pictures, get all the pictures duplicated. And it was paid for by donations. Needless to say, it didn't pay me anything. I spent literally a year, more than a year working on it. One of the best things I ever did. So these tapes sat under my bed for years. And then I moved them into the Academy archive where they were in refrigeration. But I run the archive, and I knew that videotape has a shelf life. And so I kept thinking, oh, Randy, you can't be the guy who lets your own project, you know, go to pot when you're working for this archive. So I finally decided, okay, I'm going to figure out what to do with this tape. The digital revolution is here. It's a very complicated thing. We're already working on digital preservation because that's a difficult thing. I mean, how many floppy disks do you have that work, right? So what's going to, as Lynn said, 20 years from now, you think this DVD is going to work? So I took this footage to a guy in Burbank. I was lucky to have expertise that I could call on. And he said, well, I don't know if these tapes are going to play. And I'm like, well, do your best, see what you can do. And he called me up and said, I got it all done. I had to bake all the tapes, and I'm like, okay. Now, I knew what baking was, but I was lucky to know. And at the same time, I was lucky to have a guy that knew how to do that. So we got all the footage baked. He got all the tapes to work. There's a few tapes that have a little artifact at the bottom, but that can also be cropped out. But the footage looks great. And with digital technology, you can actually make it look better than the tape looked, but some color balancing, things like that. So ironically, and I say this not to brag, this is my pleasure, it cost me about $13,000. So I'm thrilled to have this footage continue to live. This is those 80 tapes. I'm leaving this for the Historical Society. These are Blu-ray copies that the Society can use for whatever it wants. I am thrilled to pass this on, including transfers of a lot of home movie footage and other things. I leave it to the Historical Society to take care of. I'm not going to live forever. I hope this footage does. And I encourage you all to support the Historical Society. I have some more it's been a long night already. I could keep you here for days, or certainly hours. I enjoy watching it all. Again, hope we can have another one of these sometime, or you can have little mini sessions. There are definitely sections that I would love to have people sit down and look at, particularly if you went to school during a particular time, because in 1955 and in, I believe, the 1940s, there are some shots of school classes, one with Caroline Holtkamp, who was a neighbor of mine when I was a kid, but I missed being taught by her. She retired 2 years before I went to first grade. But there's kids, and the footage is hysterical. They're doing a little play with, and you can name the nursery rhymes just from what the kids in the costumes do. But I don't know who the kids are. There's one that I'm pretty sure is Karen Meckstroth-Niemeyer, but I don't know for sure. But I'd love for people to look at this footage and identify some of the people. And there may be more stories and more details on these things. I can show you some footage, but I also want to release those of you who are like, oh, God, is he going to show us more of these movies? I'm done. I'm tired. So if you would like to consider this the end of the show, I'm perfectly fine. If you want to stay and see some silent footage that Sylvanus Eversman shot, I'm more than happy to continue. I just don't want to overstay my welcome. So that's my little show for now. Who wants to continue? If you want me to continue, let me know.
Randy, would you take some questions from the audience?
I am happy to take questions, and we can, again, people don't want to stay for the questions. I understand. Everybody's got their shelf life, so. Any questions? Good night. Thanks for coming. Wayne was Bruce's cousin. He lived in Wapakoneta, and he was, our age, and we just ran around and did stuff. And he's since passed, but he was a good friend and was, helped us with the movies and projects and things that we did. He was an artist and did some of the logos and things for the company and all that. We never, Haber-Sachers was never something that we took seriously. It's got 3 German names stuck together, which is clearly funny. But on the other hand, we had fun. So that was, hey, Christy. Anybody else? Yes.
Small Town American, how many copies of this were made? Can you tell us a little bit about the Small Town American VHS?
Sure. When in 1986, when I sold the copies, which, again, all that money went to the Historical Society, once the thing was paid for. I think there were about 100 orders at the time. And of course, VHS is a format that, I still have a VHS machine, but not everybody does, and not all of them work. I have made DVDs. There's a few here for sale. Even DVDs are hard to make now. These are standard DVDs. I've made Blu-rays of it now and had this color corrected for the Historical Society. There may be some people who have segments with some of their family members who would like to obtain pieces of that. I'll try to do that. Just don't expect me to do it quickly. Even getting DVDs made is not that easy, but I do have a guy who's been helping me. He helped me edit these pieces together so that I wouldn't have to change DVDs every time. So anyway, but there's about 100, and I can tell you the names because I have the order blanks. I found them. I didn't know I had all this stuff. It's hilarious what I've kept, and it's no wonder I don't have a room in my house. But anyway, I just made about 25 more DVDs. I probably made about 100 of those too. And they sell them, and when they sell out, I send some more. And, you know, if you haven't seen that whole film, you should watch it. I really enjoy it immensely. It, you know, I'm not bragging about my own work, but I do think it tells a really interesting story, and it does, for me, capture the town, and it's got lots of great people and stories in it. There's one I didn't ever include that I wanted to show. You know, we have footage of Slody Eschmeyer talking about being a POW, which is a really nice historical piece to have. There's a couple of others that are really poignant to me that I felt, you know, I didn't really want to do publicly, but I'm really happy that they're part of the public record, so to speak. And again, for me, this kind of let me grow up and take my town with me. Any other questions? Yes?
Not a question, but you mentioned Slody Eschmeyer. We have material about him and Homer Cook already on this new website we have.
Fantastic.
A couple of interviews and even some official documents from the war.
The footage that I have from the Eversmans has Homer Cook in it. And I'm not, again, maybe somebody here knows, but the footage is, and I think it may include Roberta as the drum major. I don't know. Roberta's here tonight. I could be wrong. I haven't looked at it close enough. I found a picture of her as a drum major back there today, and I'm like, wait a minute, is this the same person? But I haven't looked at the footage. But Homer is there for a parade. It's clearly shot in the 40s after the war by a couple of years. But the band is, which a very nice sized band, is marching from the old, the Legion Hall location when it was the Creamery, and still the same location, but they're marching down and going onto Main Street. And Homer is there, and it looks like it's some kind of Veterans Parade or Veterans Day Memorial. I don't know what the parade is for, but it's pretty interesting footage. So I remember him delivering a dishwasher for my mom for Christmas, which was a big deal when that happened. So, any other questions?
Let's give Randy a big hand. We have multiple copies of Small Town American, and Randy said he would graciously stay and sign those copies if you wanted to purchase one. So, thanks again.
They're cheaper if I sign them, I think.